Rick Mercer, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How are things in St. John's today?
Things are glorious in St. John's today. It's just glorious.
I thought I knew everything about the Rick Mercer Report as an avid viewer at the time, but I learned some stuff in this book, so I just want to go through some of the secrets, at least to me, revealed. First of all, we didn't see it on the air, but you were tasered in the name of the show. How was that?
Ian, if anyone ever says stop or I'll taser you, whatever you're doing, just stop. Yes, I was tasered for the show, and it was terrible, and it never aired.
All right.
And I always would say to people who accused me of the show being just me running through my bucket list that being tasered was never on my bucket list, but the cop who tasered me, he said that was on his.
All right. Here's a weird one, and you can just kind of respond however you want. There is likely a refugee from Syria in Canada who is wearing, or at least wore, former Prime Minister Paul Martin's swimming trunks.
Yes, I was at 24 Sussex Drive. I asked Paul Martin if I could see the pool.
I didn't notice the pool.
Yeah, it's off to the side.
That's the one Trudeau built, right?
That's the one.
Do you use it?
Yeah.
Can I see it?
I'm wearing the Prime Minister's shorts.
He was kind of iffy, the famous pool that Pierre Trudeau had put in. But he said, okay, I'll show you the pool. And then while I was there looking at the pool, I remarked to my cameraman, Don, I wish I brought my trunks. And then Paul Martin offered me his trunks. And so I put on the Prime Minister's trunks, did a cannonball in the pool. And then on the way out the door, he said, keep the trunks. And eventually, I remember it was a couple of years later, I was putting a bunch of stuff together to go out to the Syrian refugees, and there were Paul Martin's shorts, and I went, okay, well, we'll just put them in the pile.
I hope the person who ended up using them figures out that, in fact, that once did belong and was once worn by both a Prime Minister and an iconic comedian.
Well, all of Paul Martin's underwear and swimsuits are labeled.
You're kidding, right?
No, yes.
Okay, good. And then, you know, everyone wonders your favorite guest or your favorite moment from the program. I think, from reading the book, it was getting a chance to drum with Neil Peart from Rush.
Count me in.
All my life I've waited for that. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm a guy who took drumming lessons in grade 7 and 8, so I could drum like Neil Peart from Rush. And I quickly realized, like all mortal human beings, that would never happen. But it was a dream when I was in grade 7 and 8. And so to get a drum lesson from Neil Peart was incredible. Compounded by the fact that Neil Peart, who sadly is no longer with us, famously had stepped back from any kind of public life other than being the drummer of Rush. He didn't do interviews, really, and he didn't do meet and greets, and he didn't do that part of being a public persona. And he agreed to come on the show, and he was fantastic, and he was funny, and he was self-deprecating, and he brought his big Rush drum kit. And yeah, for this kid who took those drum lessons, it was perhaps the greatest day of my life.
Well, first of all, you actually can drum, right? So that was pretty cool to watch.
A little bit, a little bit. And he made me look good, which again was I'm very grateful for.
But the other interesting thing about that, besides the fact that he is so interesting and charming, is that it's got a huge number of views on YouTube, like well over 1 million. And so the Rick Mercer Report lives on.
The show always lives on in YouTube. It's a perfect YouTube format because all of my segments are 6-7 minutes long. Things like Neil Peart are popular because he, as I said, he just didn't do a lot of media. So people who are rabid Rush fans, they all gravitate towards that piece. But the show still lives in schools because teachers tell me all the time that no matter what they're studying, if it's Canadian, they put my name in and whatever subject they're studying, and then they watch it in school and they realize it's going to be clean and anyone can watch it. So if they're looking at polar bears, they look at me in Churchill. Or me in Algonquin Park with the black bears, or wherever, any body of water, I'm being thrown in them. It's I'm an educational resource. Nice. I had no idea.
Well, a sign of your enduring popularity is I sent a tweet or X post out and asked people to ask you questions. And two things were remarkable about that. First of all, virtually nobody said anything mean. That's a record for that social media platform.
Really, because it doesn't take much, let's admit.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
And the second thing is, we got so many great questions quickly that I'm now going to turn over the rest of the interview to those questions. So here's some questions we got. Given the level of polarization and vitriol out there, would you be able to launch your show today?
I would like to think that I could, but I will say in the last number of years of the show, the level of vitriol increased dramatically. When we started the show, we always put stuff on Facebook. We never paid any attention to the comments. I mean, it was open for comments. People would say nice things. Some people liked it, some people didn't like it. The last number of years of the show, we had someone whose job full-time was to monitor those comments, because quite often they weren't about me or the show. They were about an identifiable group in the country. They were about one part of the country they didn't like. There was just a lot of anger, and they just took any Facebook posting as a place that they could do that. I would like to think that we could do the show. I think ultimately my show was a celebration of Canada, and that was our motto: celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. And I believe that's a big part of what the CBC should be doing. And I would like to think that it could be done again.
Here's another viewer email. Really enjoyed reading both his memoirs, miss his show. And now the question, if he could film a new walking rant, what subject would he tackle? Whatever his answer, this person says, I would want to see it. So if you were to rant next, what would it be?
You know, I rant every day around 5 o'clock on the phone to about 3 people.
Nice.
And if any of those phone conversations are ever recorded, then we'll all be done for. I don't know what I would rant about today. I'm sorry. I have to wait till 5 o'clock.
Was it?
I mean, there's so many things.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me started, because literally there's so many subjects. And don't get me started.
Is there a graffiti-strewn alley in St. John's that you pace up and down just to kind of keep your chops up?
No, I stay out of the alleys. I'm retired from the alleys for the time being.
But you know, I think, like, so for example, during the pandemic, the worst part of the pandemic, I was so grateful that I was doing work on the national and cross-country checkup. It would have been frustrating not to have those outlets to do journalism. Whether it's the pandemic or the Trump years or whatever else it is, has it been frustrating for you not to have your show?
It was very frustrating, although when I wrapped up my show, I thought I was going to have a huge, I thought it was going to be very difficult. But then very quickly, the pandemic happened. So I wasn't the only one who wasn't going to work. Most people were staying at home, and I had a book to write. So I consider myself very lucky that I had something to do, because if I didn't have something to do, I think that would have been proven very difficult. But I did things like I hosted New Year's Eve from my shed.
Live from my shed in Chapels Cove, Newfoundland and Labrador.
in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
And I love that. You know, maybe we'll do that again someday.
A lot of people are talking about AI. A lot of people are worried about AI. And your camera operator there, Ted, I asked him to print something out, and he's going to hand it to you now. I asked ChatGPT.
What are you up to, Ian Hanomansing?
To write a question in the style of Rick Mercer. Here's what GPT came up with. Here you go.
Ever notice how politicians are like GPS devices? They confidently say recalculating route, but you're left wondering if they even knew where they were going in the first place.
So that is AI, ChatGPT, writing a joke in the style of Rick Mercer.
Please God, I'm better than that.
How worried are you as a comedian, as a creative person, about artificial intelligence?
Less so now. Yeah. I'm not worried about artificial intelligence, although it is, it's a fascinating subject matter, and I'm not too concerned about it. I'm not that concerned about it, quite frankly. I think there's always been things that could be written by AI, but I don't think any great art is going to be created by AI, and so it doesn't really concern me. I'm sure there's things that I've done in my time that could have been done by AI or improved upon with AI, but I have no interest really in playing around with it.
Let me finish with this because we got lots of versions of this question. Is he ever going to do another show? I miss him.
Well, that's very kind. That's really nice. And I can't tell you how much it means when people ask me that question. I don't know is the short answer. I've really enjoyed writing books, and I've run out of runway. There's no more memoirs, that's for sure. So I don't know what the next book is going to be. But writing books is about as diametrically opposed as you can get from hosting a show like the Mercer Report. I didn't unpack for 16 years, literally. The luggage was in the front porch for 16 years. And jumping back to that is not something I'm going to do in the immediate future, but who knows? Never say never, right?
It is always a pleasure hearing you and talking to you, Rick. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ian.